Conspiracy theories are ridiculous. For reference, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about who actually killed JFK. We know more about the DNA of creatures that went extinct 65 million years ago than we do about what's really inside sealed elite files. Heck, your phone knows where you're going, what you'll buy, and who you'll call next. But asking who has access to that information is still treated like paranoia. And yet, everyone believes at least one. They're the most mocked ideas in the world, until the documents get declassified, until the whistleblower testifies, until the crazy person everyone laughed at turns out to have been right all along. Because here's what history actually shows us. MKUltra, COINTELPRO, the Snowden disclosures, Epstein's network, all of them laughed at, all of them proven. So maybe the scariest part about conspiracy theories isn't how insane they sound. Maybe it's how often the impossible becomes official history. So what exactly is going on here? And how deep do we have to go to find out? Well, as it turns out, conspiracies have levels, and they get far darker, go far deeper, and are far more real than you could have ever possibly imagined. The question was never whether these things were real. The question is, what else are we still laughing at? Level 1. The laughable. The ones forwarded in group chats as jokes. The ones that make you wonder how anyone could possibly believe them. And yet, millions do. Take Flat Earth. The Flat Earth Society has thousands of paying members, annual conferences, and its own model of physics. Their belief, Earth is a flat disk, Antarctica is a 150-foot ice wall around the edges, and NASA is a global deception operation. It is the most publicly mocked idea of the modern era, and somehow one of the most organized. Then there's Finland. The theory goes, Finland doesn't exist. It was invented as a diplomatic cover between Russia and Japan, a fictional country masking a secret fishing agreement in the Baltic Sea. The people who call themselves Finnish are actually Swedes and Estonians, living in a region the two powers quietly divided. The Finnish language, government, and culture, all manufactured. It is absurd. It has over 1 million believers. And then, Avril Lavigne. In 2003, the theory claims Avril Lavigne died. The label, unwilling to lose the revenue, quietly replaced her with a lookalike named Melissa. The evidence people cite: a shift in her style, her face, her personality after 2003. Millions of fans swear they can see it. What makes Level 1 genuinely interesting isn't the theories themselves, it's the machinery behind them. The forums, the YouTube channels, the dedicated communities who have built entire social identities around being the ones who see what others won't. These aren't people who stumbled onto something funny. These are true believers. Level 2. These theories don't make you laugh. They make you pause. They're not built on fantasy. They're built on things you can almost touch. Real aircraft, real towers, real radiation. The kind of things that already exist in the world you know, just pointed in a slightly different direction. Tens of millions of people don't dismiss them. They believe them completely. Chemtrails. The white lines aircraft leave across the sky. Most people call it water vapor condensation. The theory calls it something else. Barium, strontium, and aluminium, deliberately sprayed at altitude. For weather control, for population management, for reasons governments won't discuss. Surveys suggest up to 17% of the global population believes some version of this. That's not fringe. That's 1 in 6 people looking up. 5G. When towers began appearing globally in 2019, a theory spread. The frequencies were causing COVID-19. Towers were set on fire in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada. The WHO issued statements. The fires kept happening. Whatever caused hundreds of people to burn infrastructure, it wasn't nothing. And then, the moon. The flags wave in a vacuum. The shadows fall at impossible angles. The Van Allen radiation belt should have been lethal. The theory says Stanley Kubrick directed the whole thing on a soundstage. NASA, for its part, has never released all of the original footage. That part is not a theory. The uncomfortable truth about Level 2 is this. Every single one of these theories starts with something real. A real chemical, a real frequency, a real mission. The conspiracy isn't the starting point. It's the conclusion people reach when the official explanation feels incomplete. Level 3. These are no longer theories. Everything in level 3 was denied, mocked, suppressed, sometimes for decades, and then it came out anyway, in court documents, in Senate hearings, in corporate settlements worth billions of dollars. The question level 3 forces you to ask is a simple one. If these were real while we were being told they weren't, what else is? Purdue Pharma knew OxyContin was addictive. Their internal documents showed it. They called their highest prescribing doctors whales and paid them to keep prescribing. They lobbied regulators. They manipulated data. They told patients it was safe. 500,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses. The Sackler family, the dynasty behind Purdue, paid $6 billion in settlement fees and kept most of their fortune. In 2013, Edward Snowden walked out of the NSA with 1.5 million classified documents. They revealed PRISM, a surveillance program collecting communications data on hundreds of millions of ordinary civilians worldwide. Not terrorists, not suspects, ordinary people. Governments denied it existed until they couldn't. The program was illegal. No one went to prison. Boeing's internal emails described the 737 MAX as designed by clowns, supervised by monkeys. Engineers knew the MCAS flight control system was flawed. The FAA was too entangled with Boeing to properly certify it. 2 planes crashed. 346 people died. Boeing paid $2.5 billion. Its executives did not go to prison either. None of these cases were broken by governments holding themselves accountable. Every single one required a whistleblower, a leaked document, or a journalist who refused to drop the story, which raises one question worth sitting with. How many tinfoil stories are still waiting for their whistleblower? Level 4. What level 3 showed you was negligence, greed, corporations and governments looking the other way while people died. Level 4 is categorically different. There was no looking away here, no accidental harm. These were programs, designed, funded, approved at the highest levels of government, run on people who had no knowledge, no consent, and no possibility of refusal. The distinction matters, because the difference between a cover-up and an experiment is the difference between a system that failed its people and one that deliberately used them. MKUltra, launched in 1953, the CIA's classified program to develop mind control. LSD was administered to subjects without their knowledge or consent. Some were strapped to tables, some were tortured, some were kept in sensory deprivation for weeks while researchers took notes behind two-way mirrors. The program ran for 20 years. When it was finally exposed in 1975, CIA Director Richard Helms had already ordered the files destroyed. What we know comes from 20,000 documents that survived, by accident, in a financial records room. Tuskegee. From 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service enrolled 399 black men in Alabama into a study on syphilis. They were told they were receiving treatment. They were not. When penicillin became available in 1947, a direct cure, it was deliberately withheld. The study continued for another 25 years. When a whistleblower went public in 1972, 128 of the original participants had died. 40 of their wives had been infected. 19 of their children had been born with congenital syphilis. Both programs were stopped not because the government came clean, but because someone leaked. And in both cases, the first instinct of the institution was to destroy the evidence, not address the harm. In MKUltra's case, they largely succeeded. Level 5. Levels 3 and 4 showed you what governments do to people's bodies, what they inject, what they withhold, what they test without consent. Level 5 is about something harder to see and harder to fight, not what's being done to your body, what's being done to your mind, your beliefs, your perception of what is real. The most effective form of control has never been physical. It's informational. Level 5 asks a question that gets harder to answer the more you think about it. What do you actually know versus what have you simply been told to know? Since the 1940s, fluoride has been added to public water supplies. The official justification, dental health. The theory, fluoride is an industrial byproduct that suppresses cognition and produces a more compliant population. A 2012 Harvard study found correlations between elevated fluoride levels and reduced IQ in children. The official position hasn't changed. You're still drinking it. As of 2026, China's reported population is 1.4 billion. The theory suggests the real number is significantly lower, that decades of the one-child policy, combined with unreported deaths from famine, political purges, and state-managed demographics, have produced figures that don't survive scrutiny. Independent demographers have flagged inconsistencies in China's own census data for years. The Chinese government does not discuss this. The dead internet theory. Around 2016, something changed online. The theory: most of what you encounter on the internet, posts, comments, users, engagement is now generated by bots and AI. Human activity is the minority. The internet feels hollow because it largely is. Studies already estimate that 40 to 60% of web traffic is non-human. The rest of the theory is still a theory. For now. What makes level 5 the hardest level to process is that you can't simply fact-check your way out of it, because the theory is specifically about who controls what counts as a fact. If the information environment itself is managed, the tools you'd use to verify that are the same ones being questioned. Level 6. Everything from level 3 onward has been confirmed, documented, verified by courts, congressional records, and official bodies. Level 6 is the gray zone. The place where the evidence is overwhelming, where witnesses exist under oath, where the documents are on public record. And yet, the official story either doesn't exist or doesn't survive contact with its own facts. These are not theories invented in anonymous forums. These are cases that have been through federal courts, decades of investigative journalism and congressional investigations. Cases where the answer should be clear, and somehow, it still isn't. Jeffrey Epstein ran a trafficking network for decades. He had a private island, a private plane, a black book filled with the most powerful names on Earth. He was arrested in 2019. He died in his federal jail cell weeks later. The official verdict? Suicide. Both guards were asleep. Both cameras had malfunctioned. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted. Her clients were never charged. The full client list remained sealed. In 2024, a partial document release named 170 individuals. The most powerful names were still redacted. November 22, 1963. The Warren Commission concluded Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations re-examined the same evidence and concluded there was probably a conspiracy. Documents related to the assassination remain partially classified today, over 60 years later. The government has offered no explanation for why. Operation Northwoods is not a theory. In 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff submitted a formal proposal to the Kennedy administration. The plan: stage terrorist attacks on American soil, sink American ships, shoot down American planes, blame Cuba, use it to justify an invasion. Kennedy rejected it. The documents were declassified in 1997. Operation Northwoods is the most important entry on this entire list. Not because of what it did, but because of what it proves. It proves that the architecture of a false flag, the planning, the approval, the official signature, existed at the highest levels of the United States government. It was real. It was just rejected. Once. Level 7. Take everything you've seen on this list, every confirmed program, every cover-up, every case where the official story collapsed under the weight of its own declassified documents. Level 7 takes that entire pattern and asks what it implies. These are the theories that sit at the very edge of what can be proven, where verified history ends and documented suspicion begins. But they are not built on nothing. They are built on exactly what this video has been showing you. A consistent, documented pattern of governments and powerful institutions doing things they publicly swore they would never do. Over and over again. For decades. September 11th, 2001. The official account: Al-Qaeda. 19 hijackers. 4 planes. What the theory adds: Building 7 was a 47-story skyscraper that was never struck by a plane. It collapsed at 5:20 p.m. on September 11th, falling at near free-fall speed in under 7 seconds. FEMA's own report stated its collapse model had a low probability of occurrence. In the days before the attacks, insider trading on airline stocks spiked at levels that have never been adequately explained. The 9/11 Commission's own co-chairs later said the commission had been set up to fail. We know the government proposed Operation Northwoods. We know it staged the Gulf of Tonkin incident to justify Vietnam. We know about MKUltra and Tuskegee. The 9/11 theory does not come from nowhere. It comes from a pattern. The Georgia Guidestones were erected in 1980 by an anonymous group. Carved into granite in 8 languages, they listed 10 guidelines for humanity. The first, maintain the global population at 500 million, a reduction of over 90% from today. The theory, a coordinated effort running through global institutions, foundations, and pharmaceutical systems, is working toward that number through manufactured crises, through engineered scarcity. Now look at what's actually happening. Total fertility rates across virtually every Western nation have fallen below the replacement threshold of 2.1. South Korea sits at 0.72, the lowest ever recorded by any country in human history. The European Union average is 1.5, the United States, 1.6. None of these numbers sustain a population. All of them are declining. A 2017 meta-analysis published in Human Reproduction Update found that sperm counts in Western men had fallen by over 50% since the 1970s. Testosterone levels have followed the same trajectory. The cause, according to official science, unclear. Correlation is not causation, but it is a pattern. You do not need to believe in a coordinated plan to find the convergence disturbing. Pharmaceutical systems profiting from dependency, water supplies with disputed effects on cognition, a collapsing reproductive baseline, an internet engineered to keep people isolated and engaged simultaneously, all of it documented, all of it happening at once. And finally, the Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations. These organizations are real. They meet in private. They shape global economic and political policy. The theory says they are not separate institutions. They are nodes in a single network, controlled by a class of ultra-wealthy individuals who have already decided how this world will be governed. That elections are managed theater, that the candidates on both sides answer to the same people, that what you are watching is a performance designed to make you feel like you have a choice. What separates level 7 from every other level isn't the lack of evidence, it's the scale. Individual programs can be exposed, individual conspiracies can be declassified. But a system operating across governments, across decades, and across borders is something the standard tools of accountability were never designed to reach. 7 levels. One question remains. We confirmed MKUltra. We confirmed Tuskegee. We confirmed PRISM, Operation Northwoods, the Sackler cover-up, and Epstein's network. Every single one of them was once called a conspiracy theory. So look at what's still on this list. And tell me, which ones are you still laughing at?